I can't hear anything.
I don't know why.
Why can't you hear me?
I don't know.
Oh, because... Oh, no, it's not.
Everything should be working.
And when they do the playback, they don't get to watch any of this.
No, that's
So
how
they're
come
just
we're
going to watch
sitting
us
there.
like...
That's why we sit here like this.
Like with their faces like this.
But then-
Hello!
Hey, look at that. We're actually in the camera and everything.
That worked. And I wasn't
Wow.
turning away.
I know.
Actually, wow, I'm all
And then
puffy.
you do this. Hi.
Hello, how is everybody? I apparently am all puffy.
Oh,
Look at that.
yeah.
Looks like I just woke up. Nope, but I didn't.
Mm.
I've been up for a while.
Okay, turn that up. Okay. Oh.
Hello!
Yay. Stephanie, hello.
Hola and good day to everyone. This is Lee and
Oh.
from CoupleDumb.com here on
Yes.
Relationship Rehab on the wonderful Mingle
Yes.
Media TV.
Right, where we talk about relationships and drink coffee. That's our thing.
That's all we do. Or we write about relationships
And drink coffee. Yeah.
One thing's always the same.
Coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the way it is.
Yes. If there's any coffee people out there, we sponsors for our habits.
Yeah.
You know, and we would
In
hire.
line and
That's right.
planning. Especially this month has been just,
Yeah.
and it's great. It's fantastic.
2011 is
It's starting
shaping
out
up
with a
nicely.
bang and very exciting. Lots of stuff going on.
But cocaine is beginning to sound nice. Just so that
If we weren't as old as we were,
I know.
sure.
Uh,
It takes me back to my college days, my
Yeah.
heady college days, where amphetamines and cocaine were okay. Yeah.
right.
80s, Los Angeles. It was like buying chiclets at the at the 7-Eleven. It was easy.
So yes, what are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week? Let's see. Starting on Sunday, we are going to be covering the NATPE conference here in Miami Beach. NATPE stands for?
Well, see, we have to say we didn't know what it stood for either when we first found
Yeah.
out. So just like you, sitting there going, really? Is that
That's
anything?
nice.
Yes. Is that
That's
a
nice.
National Association produced?
That's right. And we will be covering up for this wonderful
Yeah.
station, Mingle Media TV.
That's right.
And we're really excited about doing that. So we'll be there Sunday night for a cocktail party, and then Monday
He had another
And-
cocktail party,
and-
and then
and the actual conference and
Yes.
stuff. And the big name producers and executives from the television world are there, and they're going to be talking about web content and
Mhm.
exactly what
Good
we do
stuff.
here and what we do here on Mingle Media TV,
Mm-hmm.
which you should catch. I mean, there's a lot of great live programming, fantastic like pre-tape shows. I mean, like real studio quality series are being done on this very station on Mingle Media TV. So you need to catch that because it's amazing. Everything's changing. It's I mean, remember back in the days where it was only like 3 channels.
yeah.
We had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and then you had your local affiliates. I mean, in Los Angeles we had Channel 11 and Channel 13, Channel 9 and
Right.
Channel 5.
Right.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they were all. I mean, those other 4 were all the rinky-dink stations.
Right.
They were the local stations. There was no national news on those. I mean, it was barely local. And like at 1:00 they went off the air, and you might see them again
Mhm.
at 6:00 in the morning with Jack LaLanne.
For your younger folks.
For you younger folks.
Yeah, the TV actually stopped at a certain point.
Yeah, so we would get the little ball.
Uh-huh.
The, ooh.
Yeah.
No, first we'd get the
national
national anthem
Yeah.
with the flag,
Mhm.
and then it was usually the guys the World War II memorial where the guys are holding up the flag.
Yeah.
That's how it ended, and cut, and then doo
Yes.
for the rest of the night,
Mm-hmm.
which sucked for insomniacs like
Right.
me.
So now you can watch pretty much anything that's on the internet on your TV.
Yeah, that's very
And
cool.
they're making all kinds of TV shows and that kind of stuff that are web series.
Yeah, gotta catch those things. I mean, there's nothing
Like
to
us.
watch on TV. Yeah, if there's nothing to watch on TV, hop on your computer. There's
Right.
plenty to watch there.
Yeah.
Lots of great stuff. Watch it. I mean, and not only that, it's like you're having major stars, do these web series. So you gotta check this out. Very cool stuff. It's the wave of the future.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, and then next Friday, we'll tell you right now, we're not going to be doing our show.
No.
Next Friday, our little girl turns 18.
Yeah.
And we will be going off on a cruise with the family. Not just our immediate family with the boys and our daughter. We'll be going with my parents, my brother, my sister,
family.
And their families. So this has the potential of being lots of fun.
It will be something that we'll talk about
Something to be
afterwards.
talked about.
Yes. There's going to be some writing on this one.
And talk about, because I'm overwhelmed.
I'm quite whelmed over myself. Yes.
And it's amazing how, and it never work that really overwhelms us. It's always the emotional stuff that overwhelms. And you're going to see how I'm going to segue this into exactly what we're going to talk. It's, for most people, we start out with this fervor, like, okay, we got to make this year good. And so you work and work and work really hard and something happen. And then, life happens at you, the emotional, very much, turning ages, especially since we were 2. And here back from college, so there's a lot of emotional stuff going on. And as the emotional stuff takes over, your sex drive kind of plummets. And you'll go a while and realize, hey, wait a minute, it's been how long since we've... And not because there's a problem between you and your partner, but because life is lifing at you.
Mm-hmm.
And, to pretend that it's not is probably worse for you. It's like, as a therapist, I'm always telling... I would always tell clients, you need to honor where you're at. You can't be Superwoman if you've got 5 million things going on. I can't, it's like, we've talked on the show before about the 4 agreements. And, one of the agreements is I always do my best. Well, sometimes your best is staying in bed. Sometimes your best is sitting and playing Texas Hold'em for a good 2 hours until your brain stops worrying,
Yes, the smoke clears.
And when the smoke, when the smoke dissipates from your temples, then you can start doing other things. But, we live in a society, especially, I don't know what it is that started this perfect mommy image that keeps coming at me. And, being in social media and being a woman in social media, that's really what they expect you to be like. But I'm not that kind of woman, and I'm not that kind of mom. So, I need to remind myself of that and honor who I am and honor where I'm at. And I know it sounds very hippie-ish, but tough. That's the way.
We got the hippie thing going.
And that's what we're talking about next week, actually.
Yeah, right.
On Coupledom, we're going to be talking about, spirituality and how you manifest that, and what's the big difference between being all hippie-ish, and being all new agey. Not new agey like, we're sitting here like surrounded by crystals or anything like that, but just a few, accents.
You're right.
But more like, being open and, experiencing the universe and stuff like that. But go back to bed. Yes, go back to bed. Good night. Good night. But anyway, but all back to, honoring where you're at.
Yes.
So, but sex tends to take, it's interesting because when you're younger, sex takes a priority, in your relationship. And that's good. That's a good thing. I mean, there's nothing bad in that. It's funny. I remember when we were first married a million years ago. Back in the 80s, guys.
Right.
So, yeah. How many decades is that we were married in? When we first got married, it was, nobody visited us.
Mm-mm.
Nobody would come over. And it was kind of, I mean, it was our first apartment and all that, and nobody would come over to our house. And, then we'd ask, it's like, hey, what's wrong? Why don't you ever come and see us? And they're like, well, we don't want to bother you. And I'm like, what do you guys think that we're doing all the time,
Right.
And we have this image of what, like, newlyweds do all the time. And what...
I'm free the other 23 hours and
55
minutes. We got plenty of time to visit.
Yeah. So, yeah. Pity me. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Aw.
Yes. You have a bad sex life. Oh.
Anyway, so, anyway.
Image of what the newlyweds.
My mind just...
She's thinking
just
about that
took
5 minutes.
They were a good 5 minutes. I'm not going to lie. So...
It's all about quality, not quantity.
Exactly. That, I think that, if anything, that's the purpose of the show.
Right there.
It's quality, not quantity.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because that's exactly what happens. We're not gonna get amorous. No. We thought about it. Like, what would it take to bring up the numbers?
Yeah.
And
we'll do a naked show at some point in the future, but not.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
I could do that without any problems.
Just
My shoulders are
excited.
cute. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so.
You never know what my hands are doing,
Yeah,
so
true.
no.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the point of that is that as you're younger, your libido and all that stuff is supposed to be high,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a normal thing. However, when it's not, society has created a bunch of labels to make sure that you feel really bad about not being, whatever. Obviously for frigid, or they're cold, or obviously that they have some major problem.
Mm-hmm.
With the guy, it's a lot worse because then it calls to question their manhood, or all that stuff. I mean, it's like a guy's supposed to be ready all the time, and a woman is supposed to be ready for her man all the time. Now, here's where we get the disconnect in our society, especially being Americans, because we have a way with making taking something really beautiful and kind of twisting it.
We're special that way.
Seriously, I mean, we have this gift called sex, and it feels great, and across the board, everybody without major physical or psychological problems will agree that sex is a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's where you ask them. Now, if you ask them at a mall, they're going to be like, oh, I can't really talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
If we ask them in private, anonymously, then they can talk about it. And this is something that's universal. I mean, it's like kind of like talking about what the color blue looks like. It's like everybody experiences blue the same way. That's a constant. This is the way it is. This is part of the spectrum. This is a quantifiable thing called blue. Now, sex is the same way. Sex has been, even though we like to, think of it as something very spiritual and like the angels come and sing to you, and this is why you're always calling out to God and all that other stuff. Sex is something quantifiable.
You can break that down right to its neurological.
Yeah, I mean, it's very.
pieces.
I mean, they know what neurons are firing. They know what part of your brain is activated. They know all that stuff because scientists are really, really sick fuckers, and they like to put electrodes on people when they're having a good time.
Oh, we figured that the scientists aren't having sex, so
And
they
you
would
figure,
want to study it at least.
they like to watch young
Right.
college students have sex.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because as a psychotherapist when I was in school, I don't know how many countless movies I got to see of, fuzzy college students, and it's usually fuzzy because it was back in the 70s, and they did a lot of these things in the 70s. But it was always like this fuzzy college student, either a guy with like a fro or, definitely lots of hair, and the girl had hair everywhere, and it's these two people that they like hooked up to all these electrodes, and they're having them have sex, and you're seeing on the EEGs all the parts of the brain that are activated, and look how that's working, and look what is happening when they're having foreplay, and when they get it started, and when they're starting to reach orgasm, and after the fact, and all of this stuff has been recorded over and over again. So it's not a question that sex is a wonderful thing. We know it is.
Right.
We know quantifiably, we know scientifically that it's a wonderful thing. However, in our society,
not so much.
No, not so much. We don't like to talk about it.
Right.
But then we do. Okay, we've got kids home from school today,
Yes.
so holding the
Yes.
conversation. Jeannie, now. Let them touch everything in your room. I'm sorry. Parenting.
Yeah.
See, if anything, this is one of the great interruptions of sex, being a parent.
Oh, yeah.
This
is definitely, what's happening right now is a great metaphor for sex and life.
Yeah.
We
Ricky,
were
now,
talking about
go to
sex,
Jeannie's
we
room.
were kind of getting into it, and then here comes a kid whining.
There you go.
Yeah. Because
One-
a little side note, they're never happy when you're when they're interrupting. They're always whining about it. Don't know why.
Anyway, yes. So, and you get the same feeling, I'm on a roll, damn it. Okay, but anyway, Paul wrote about it on Monday on Coupledom, about the paradox that we have, coffee time. The paradox that we have about sex in our society. It's like everybody thinks about sex. Men think about sex every 7 to 8 seconds. Women think about sex probably at the same rate, or maybe a little bit slower, up to 10 seconds. But we think about it. It's there. When you meet somebody, a thought always goes through your head. Something will go through your head about sex. Not necessarily about having sex with them, but you wonder, are they, if you meet someone who's really attractive, you're like, wow, I wonder. But it's not like, you're having, it's not like, back like when Jimmy Carter says that I have sinned in my heart kind of thing. It's not like you're constantly thinking of people having sex. You wonder about their sex lives. And that is thinking about sex. Because one of the things that happens in our paradoxical world on sex is that you think about it and then you feel guilty about it. Because you figure, well, nobody else does this either. I'm the only one. I'm the sick pervert who's thinking about sex. And especially if you're a woman. See, guys are expected to. Guys, pretty much it's like a law. At this point, it's like a societal law that they know that guys are pigs and guys are thinking about sex and that's all they want, and it's like there's only one thing a guy wants and la 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 la. So it's like they've already like set the stage for themselves. However, as women, we're the ones that are really caught in this paradox. We're caught in this Madonna whore world that not only is it a very sick way to live, this is how most women live in our country, because you can't be a sexual woman without being a whore in our society. You can't be open without people judging you to be a whore. You have to maintain this, I'm a pure virgin, and look at me with my children and how dedicated I am, and I barely even notice I have a husband because I'm so concentrated on these kids. That's what society wants to see. That's the woman society wants to see. They don't want to know that as soon as you lock that door, you're a hellcat. They don't want to know that.
Right.
They want to know that
you're taking care of your kids, not how you made them.
Yeah, exactly. That you're baking cookies for your children. That all you think about is them, and that you have a happy marriage only because he's so proud of you of being a good mommy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes. And then the whole definition of good mommy comes into play
Oh.
also. But
We won't get into that.
yes.
But so then women who are more freer with their sexuality and with their, and I'm not saying, you know, in terms of being, you know, bisexual or anything like that. I'm just talking about being more open with their sexuality.
More in touch with their
and
sexuality.
sensuality.
Right.
Are something's wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
They can't play in that group of mommies.
Mm-hmm.
They can't play in that group of, you know, of women. They're shunned to the fun table, as like I would like to call
Right.
it, because these women are not fun. You know, I want to be with the fun women.
And it's
And
interesting
of course, I talk
because-
about this from personal experience because I am one of these women.
Right. And that's actually what I was about to say too, is that it's not just society, but the people will also self-identify them.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
I mean, you identify yourself as, you know, the fun woman, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Immediately.
I do. And I make a point of it because it's like I don't really want to play in your backyard because your backyard is kind of sick. You know, your backyard isn't very fun. Your backyard isn't filled with, you know, innuendo and treating me as a woman, less as a babysitter, wet nurse, you know, kind of archetype. I'm a woman.
More well-rounded.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
that's really
I
what
can
we're
be
talking
a
about.
mom. I can be, you know, a career woman, and I'm gonna have to kill one of my children.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Ay. I'm going to yell. Please excuse me. Gip.
Jeannie, now please.
Oh, she's there? Okay. Don't let him out. Do not let him out. Oi.
And once again, as I get all riled up, he comes out again. It's like they have a sixth sense.
Yes.
So anyway,
I call him Trojan.
yeah,
Yeah.
we do. Actually, we call our daughter Trojan because she is the
Yes.
worst.
Yeah.
She is the worst at
Oh,
it.
because she has more practice.
Yeah, true.
She's been doing
She's
it
better.
much longer.
So anyway, you know, we're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the unsatisfying. Here's the problem with the unsatisfying. There's so many factors to having unsatisfying sex. You know, we have the physical and the psychological. Now, the physical stuff is, you know, some of it is as easy as, you know, you need rest.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is as easy as you need to take a break and get away from the house. You know, get away from the stress.
Right.
Stress and fatigue are the number one killers of sex drive. And, you know, it probably behooves most couples to take a nap. It probably behooves most couples to go to bed early and get up early if they want to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that they are well rested. It probably behooves most couples to have sex, you know, to plan sex out. And I know, you know, we went through infertility treatments. We know that scheduled sex is a bummer and all that good stuff. But in today's world, guess what? If it's not, you know, in your Google Calendar, it's not going to happen. You know, if you don't have a little chime telling you it's time to get it on, that's not going to happen because something else is going to take precedence.
It's all about prioritizing.
Yeah, exactly. And what was I going to say? I'm lost.
See, I would say that one of the big factors in good sex, bad sex kind of stuff is sociological. We're trained.
That's a big word.
I know. We're trained
I'm sorry, Kyle.
with various, I guess, opinions on how sex should be. So, okay, one of the ones that surprises me, and that it's like, not surprises me, but okay, 48% of women can't have orgasm without clitoral stimulation. Okay, nice statistic, about half. You know, makes sense. Yet there are a lot of males out there who see that as an offense to them, to their masculinity. If they need to, you know, to do more than just use their penis. how dare they?
How dare you need
right.
anything else?
I should be enough. And it's like if when Lee and I first got together and before we had sex and all that kind of stuff, we read a lot, right? Okay,
Yes.
we read because we didn't know what we were doing and we did it the way we're academians. We got a book or several
Yes. Actually. Yeah.
And that's one of the first things that they talked about in the book, at least for the men, is the penis, wonderful thing. I'm very, very fond of mine, but it's not all that amazing as far as being like dexterous and doing stuff. I can't really make it vibrate. I can't use it to tie my shoes. It doesn't move that much.
I think it's a lot more talented than you think.
Yes.
I tend to have no problems with that.
Basically, my point, though, is that that's really a thing passed down in society. It's these great illusions about sex.
Right. And that anything... that a woman should be satisfied merely with a man's penis. And now, technically, it can happen, obviously, if they're saying 50%. Now, the sad thing about doing statistics on sex... No, it doesn't tell you. Well, if it's Velcro,
Yes.
then they can.
I must admit, I might need to try now that I say.
Maybe when you were younger and your back wouldn't give out.
Yeah.
So, God, dude, you're interrupting me. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's like I'm already... This is, it's funny. I'm such an open person, and I'm talking about this, and I'm blushing through the whole thing, and I have no idea why. I mean, I used to do... for years, I did just plain old sex therapy, and this is what I talked about morning, noon, and night, and I had no problems with it. And now years later, I'm on camera, and a bunch of people are watching, and anyway. Speaking of which, if you're just watching, get on the chat. If you get on the chat, we'll send you sexy bands, which are like those silly bands but sexy ones.
Right, for adults.
For adults. And you can share, there's actually sexy band with boobs in it. And there's a penis. And so it's very cute, very funny.
Or you can give them to your kids and
You
see
give
if
'em to your
anybody
kids.
notices. See how long it takes till you get the phone call.
Are those boobies? Yes, they are.
No. Others. They're from a cow thing.
Anyway, so most statistics for women when it comes to sex are skewed because women tend to lie. Funny about sex. So in the old days, back in the day, like when Kinsey first started doing her, his and her, Johnson & Johnson and Kinsey doing their reports, women tended to underreport being orgasmic and all that stuff, and tended to say things like, "No, obviously I don't do that," and because the puritanical, waspy American kicked up in their ass, and it was like, "No, I can't say that I've enjoyed sex at all because enjoying sex would mean that I'm, a whore." So that was back in the day. This is we're talking late 50s, early 60s. And nowadays, women overreport that they have orgasms because we've swung the pendulum the other way, and it's like, if you don't have an orgasm, there's something wrong with you. We know that, when somebody presents with sexual arousal dysfunction or female sexual arousal dysfunction, that we first have to look at the psychological. For men who have arousal dysfunction, we know that 80% of it is physical. Okay.
Right.
For women, 30% is physical. Isn't that amazing? Something very either extremely catastrophic, or something as simple as scar tissue or whatever that isn't allowing them to get an erection. Yes, hormonal issues are definitely in play and all that. For women, it becomes this like Pandora's box of problems. Because as soon as our libido starts lowering, we start creating other problems on top of it. Okay? Let me okay, hold on. I don't want to mess anything up, so anyway, so for women, as the psychological problems start creating physical problems. So then it could manifest as a physical problem. So simple things for women. We know, most women will be able to admit and or tell you that most sex for us starts in the mind. And sexual arousal starts, with the fantasy and with the expectation. And so if that's not working, if your mind's not in it, then you're going to have a very difficult time getting lubricated. And if you have a difficult time getting lubricated, you're going to have an impossible time, because this is how it works. I mean, I love the fact that most people think they know about sex, but they really don't get the mechanisms and the amount of body morphing that takes place. Because we know that, a guy goes from flaccid to erect, and that's just fascinating. And like, wow. I mean, I know that I've been fascinated by that for years. Like, wow, that's just how that works. It's like, you get to see that.
I like the fascination.
But you don't get to see that on the women's side.
Right.
Because it's happening all internally. Because as soon as you start lubricating, then your vagina starts lengthening and swelling and getting ready for it. Now, what happens is that if you don't lubricate, your vagina doesn't lengthen and swell, so then any sex that does take place is going to be painful if you don't use a lubrication, or, if you don't start getting into it at some point, because then it's not going to be, you're not going to have the capacity to enjoy sex, or to be able to have it without having some discomfort.
I mean, straight friction is
ouchy. Yeah, I mean, that's an dry and buffing. That's just That's not fun at all. So that causes pain. Now, then what happens is that when we have pain, immediately our brain just shuts down and does the, that's not good. Because what happens is that all of our little neurons go to where the pain is, and then when it does that and we focus on the pain, it just magnifies. And then it starts creating memories. And all of a sudden, your little psychological problem starts becoming a physical problem. Also, as women, we tend to forget that we're constantly in flux. Every month we know that we get a surge of estrogen and some progesterone, and then it goes down. Then at some points in our cycle, we have a little shot of testosterone, and that's to tell us you better go have sex now because you're ovulating, and on and on and on. And yes, ladies, we do have testosterone in our body.
Yes.
And most women tend to forget that.
Yeah.
And some of us have more than others. Some of us have more of a sexual drive than others. And yes, it's usually from the testosterone that we feel the heightening of the libido. So for those of us, lucky ones, who have a normal to high level of testosterone, then you tend to be more libidinous, as we like to say in the biz, throughout the month. And there are some women who just feel it during the ovulation phase of their cycle, or post menstruation. I know, it's all just scientific and so sexy. I know.
Now, I would say that if a woman is having problems, that a man isn't helping.
Usually not.
I mean, because I'll go with, just kind of from gut instinct, the first reaction to her not being into it, let's say, would be to do it harder. Because, we're all about the penis.
Yeah,
harder,
because
stronger,
everybody knows
bigger,
homo show. Everybody knows that if it's not working, just smack it harder.
I mean, definitely a good male mentality there.
Yeah, fix it, and it doesn't get fixed like that. I mean, Some women, thanks to the advent of all this great science, some women take low doses of testosterone to be normal, to feel libidinous, have sexual desire, to just maintain a normalcy in sexual necessities. Not to be a nympho or anything like that. And hypersexuality is definitely a real thing. We know that people who are addicted to methamphetamines tend to be hypersexual because what it does is it just stimulates that part of the brain so much, and you start excreting a lot of testosterone, so then you feel like having more sex. This is all part of and it becomes almost like that itch that you just can't quite scratch.
So what you're saying is a guy who wants to have sex would find a fuzzy meth woman. Yes. Got it. That is the message of the show.
Teeth optional.
Yes. Yeah, well.
If you're not interested in all that dental work, then go ahead.
Right. Yes.
And,
a big
hygiene.
smile is overrated.
A big smile's overrated. And, gumming. Ew. Yeah, that's the prude in me. At least teeth. Anyway, so psychological reasons. There's like a gajillion psychological reasons why we don't have good sex, and it's very sad. And number one would be how you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Was there sexual abuse in your past? And these are the things that we tend to forget. These are the things that we tend to overlook. Like, that was a long time ago. No matter how severe or how would you say that? How subtle,
mm-hmm.
okay, the sexual abuse was. You were abused. Mm-hmm. And that will warp the way you think about sex. And especially if you were a woman, that plays into absolutely everything that creates your self-identity and your sexual self-identity. For men, their gender identity is all wrapped up in whether they were sexually abused when they were children. Obviously, if they were molested by a man, there is going to be, ramifications on how they perform or how they feel comfortable with, whoever, whether they're gay or straight, it doesn't matter. There will be issues with performance, whether they'll be hypersexual or hyposexual, will depend on what type of abuse they suffered. Or there are those people who are extremely resilient and it doesn't really have that kind of effect on them, and has more effect on their psychosocial behavior with family and spouses or partners and all that. So childhood sexual abuse, you can't, and when I say subtle, if you lived in a home where sex was never mentioned, where girls were supposed to button up to the very tippy top and wear sackcloth and never show that they were, developing, that's going to affect you.
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah.
You will never relax enough
mm-hmm.
to be able to have an orgasm, because you're not supposed to.
Right.
And
the message there is that somewhere under all those clothes, there's this sexual being that has to stay hidden.
And it's gross.
Yes, it's bad, it's gross, it's whatever, but it better stay hidden.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And that's that. Then you have the opposite, where you have mom and dad, or mom and boyfriends, or dad and girlfriends, or mom and dad and multiple partners running around the house, and sex is is as common as take me to my Little League game, and
We know a person where her parents would have, they go on like vacations, and her parents would have sex in the hotel room, in their own bed, while Lucy was in the other bed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was, I think that I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I don't know how I would do that, but I think they thought she was asleep,
Right.
But we're talking about a hotel room where you could just reach over and touch the other bed.
Mm-hmm.
That's nasty.
Right.
Not even going into the bathroom, mind you. We're talking about, and that person didn't think that that was a bad thing.
No.
So here she is, an adult, a mother already, a married woman, mother. And she's saying, well, what's so bad about that? And her husband's looking at her with his eyes about to pop out of his head. And he's like, it's disgusting because he's the one that actually said, this is what her parents did. And we're like,
now on kind of this grander scheme, notice that her parents did that. It was passed down to her. She was probably passing it down to her kid. If she continues to meet people who would agree with that, then this becomes basically a sociological thing, where if you get enough people to agree that that's the way it is,
then it becomes that.
Yeah.
And you know what? And let's all decide to agree that let's not do that.
Yes.
Because that's nasty. That's just gross. I mean, there's nothing more damaging to sex than, and from a psychological point of view, and I'm not saying this as a prude or anything like that, and God bless you if you want to do the things you want to do, but there's nothing more damaging to sex than bringing in many people into it. We don't have the self-esteem to handle that kind of stuff in the long run. So anyway, so when you suffer abuse, whether it's subtle or catastrophic, incest, molestation, what you have is a mixture of guilt and trauma and shock. And that guilt and trauma and shock are embedded in your brain. The memories are stuffed in there. You could develop gender identity issues. Now, when we say gender identity issues, that's kind of a misnomer. I mean, it's more like sexuality identity issues. Are you gay or are you straight? Many people, especially nowadays, engage in experimentation. And within that experimentation, you also bring things like guilt and trauma and shock. So then all of a sudden you start developing even more trauma and crap on top of sex. Like, oh God, why did I do that? I really didn't want to do that. And ew, why did I, this is why I really, when I talk to women and men, it's like, yeah, you might be curious, but is that enough? To really damage your psyche? And then, some people come out of that unscathed, but a lot of people maintain that shame regarding that activity. So think twice before you do things like that. I know that we've talked to our daughter about that, and not in that it's like, if she's going to be gay, great, fantastic, wonderful, God bless you. That's who she is, and whatever. But just to try it out, like it's it's a new activity.
Right. Any sex as a fad.
Yeah.
Is a concern to me.
It's like having multiple partners because I just haven't done it. Well, I haven't swallowed a sword either. Bad example. I haven't, base jumped either. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it just to say, just to check it off my bucket list. It doesn't make sense to do something like that.
See, this goes back to the schizophrenia of sex, the multiple personality of sex.
Right.
Because, on one hand, we are definitely saying sex is natural, it's enjoyable, it's something that people should do. On the other hand, it is something special. It is something that one would, think about and, try to do, I don't want to say do right, but do in a way that's not going to be damaging to themselves and to other people.
Yeah.
You
Can we try that?
Yeah.
Our psyches are fragile enough, that you have you get fired from work, and it could send you into a depression.
Mm-hmm.
You engage in sex with multiple partners at the same time, that could send you into a fit of despair from just the shame alone. And we like to think that we're this society where everything's all well and good. We're not. We are a schizophrenic society. We are a paradoxical society. We are a society that, that promotes sex and condemns it all in the same breath. So, and you are part of that society.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, let's face it. As a society, we're really not very good at the whole sex and relationship thing, anyhow. So, trying to add extra people to it. Mix up the dynamic even more.
How about you just get good at one?
Yeah.
I mean, even just masturbation. We're not even clear as a society whether masturbation's okay. We fired a surgeon general that said, you know what, instead of engaging in promiscuous sex, why don't you just masturbate? And we fired her ass for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most intelligent thing
right.
that a surgeon general in this country has ever said, and we fired her. And forevermore, she's known as the masturbation woman.
Right.
Poor Jocelyn.
Basically, because she went up against the weird
puritanical
societal
bullshit. It's like, oh no, but Christianity says, well, it doesn't make sense. Everybody does it. Even babies do it. Animals do it. Of course, masturbation is healthy and normal. Okay? It's the way you explore your own body. But no, that's a bad thing. Even though everybody does it. It's just so frustrating. It's frustrating because you're talking about it, and then you have the opposite going on because, teenagers and 20-somethings and 30-somethings are just, going rampant and doing whatever, and then turning around, and then they become the voice of saying, ooh, don't do that. Well, get it clear, people. I mean, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, so, I love when I write notes and I have no idea what I'm talking about.
You at one point were shocked and...
Yeah, I know. But now I'm talking about, okay. Sex is something that, biologically, now I'm going to get all science on you. When you mix the psychological with the biological, you have, or actually neurological, you have this. If I'm having sex with somebody I don't know, then, my brain has to obviously engage at some point in it. Now, we like to say like, oh no, just stop thinking. But as women, we don't do that.
Yeah,
women,
most people can't do that.
Women, they fantasize during sex. They get into it. There's anticipation, and that aids in the lubrication and all that other stuff. You have to be engaged neurologically for sex. Now, if I have, we're really into it today. This is our third cup of coffee for this. So if you're in a sexual situation with somebody you don't know, your brain doesn't have any good memories of this person. It doesn't have the, remember when this happened. So as a woman, you're really working with the unknown. And what it tends to do is that whatever he does tends to trigger memories, and a lot of the times what happens is that our temporal lobes get engaged, and when our temporal lobes get engaged because we're trying to fantasize, it could also cause a lot of inhibition. Okay? So if you can't come while you're with a new person, it's because you don't feel comfortable. To feel comfortable, you really have to disengage and allow your amygdala to take over. Now, your amygdala is where we store our emotional memories. Okay? So, I've been with this guy sexually for 23 plus years. Okay? And I have a dearth of treasures to go through whenever we have sex. I mean, I can go, remember that time on the pool table, and it's all there, filed away in my brain. So even if the sex is mediocre, my brain can make it amazing, because I've already had that. So I already have that neurological memory embedded memory that will send the signals to where they need to go so that I have a better sexual experience. It's like, and I think that that's one of the beauties of being in a relationship, that you do create those things. So then, when you're a parent and all that, and you have the stresses of life, that you have almost like I don't know, like a bank of orgasms that you could choose from. So if the only thing that you could manage is a quickie or, some quick fondling in the closet, your brain's going to remind you of all this good stuff, and you're going to respond a lot faster than, a 20-something-year-old who just met a guy. And that's just the way it works. It's like your brain knows. It's like, listen, I know you're only going to get this much time with this person, so we know we need to speed this thing up. There's no more, I remember when we first got together where we would spend days in bed and we could do things like that. And nowadays, I don't think I have the patience to do that anymore.
Plus, your hip would hurt, my back would hurt,
That, and there's just so many things to do, So your body knows that. Your body knows that, your brain knows that, and then it helps you along. It's like, remember this one? Remember San Diego circa 1988? Boom. And then all of a sudden, your brain already takes over. Okay?
So this to me then,
Yeah.
if you're, based on what you just said,
Right.
because we know, studies know that happy people have happy relationships, have good relationships. It's just one of those nice linear things.
Happy equals happy.
Yes.
Wow, science.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
So if you're a sexually half glass, a glass half full kind of person, then that would mean just better sex. If you're inclined to be pleased with your sex,
Right. Then you're going to have good sex.
You're going.
If you define sex as something pleasant and wonderful, then you're going to have pleasant and wonderful sex.
Because you'll create the memories
Right.
of happy sex,
And you will file the memories under that.
Right.
I mean, that isn't to say that, and don't take this the wrong way, Mike. But, in the last 23 years, you're talking about 23 years, you're talking about infertility treatment. Remember those sex times? Ooh, those were fun.
Yeah.
It's like we can pull out nasty memories of sex and like, oh, that really didn't ring my bell, and that wasn't very good, and wow, that was really fast. What happened there? Quick draw and all that other kind of stuff that happens, throughout almost 25 years of cooking. I mean, lots of crap happens.
Right. Out of those 6 times,
Yeah, 4, 5, 6 times.
Yeah, right.
But but you're also talking about all the other great times and the emotions surrounding all the other great times. It's like, to create a satisfying sex life, your mind has to be into it, and clear of any shame or guilt or whatever that was caused way back in your past or like not so far back. Obviously, if you've been raped, seek treatment, because if not, then every time that somebody touches you, it's like getting raped all over again. So you need to keep it clear.
If you have a really significant negative, sexual memory, would be the foundation of all of the sex you have.
Exactly. Most definitely. And it's like, for me, good sex is always related to laughing. I know that when...
Not laughing at me. Just said, there's no pointing involved.
No.
Yeah.
Laughing with him. And it's usually like the giggling, and it's giggling during, and it's giggling afterwards. It's a happy experience. It's a full emotional experience and not just physical. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't, we've talked about this before. We don't talk about making love or anything like that, because mixing love and sex and
As a matter of fact, notice
Yeah.
that this whole show we've talked
Never
very
talked
little,
about making love.
right, about sex and relationship.
Right.
We have sex is sex, and relationship. As a matter of fact, my opinion is I think the sex and relationship connection should be a whole different topic at some point.
Yeah.
Because that is a whole
Right.
different topic.
I mean, and then this isn't to say that we don't think that sex should be taking place in a relationship. We're just saying
Right.
things like, I mean, I strongly recommend people to be in good relationships before they have sex because it makes it better.
Yeah.
You know, it takes something that's okay and makes it better. You know, and women out there who aren't having orgasms or whatever, before you start blaming yourself, before you allow him to start blaming you, look at who you're having sex with. Okay? Men out there, if your woman isn't enjoying herself, even, I'm not saying that she has to have an orgasm every single time, but if your woman isn't enjoying the experience with you, you need to look at what you're doing too. Men are trained to blame the woman if she's not having an orgasm.
That's interesting, because I would say the other way around.
Well, no. Actually, I mean, if you look at studies, it's usually the men who tell women that there's something wrong with them. Because those are the men who are so completely disconnected to what they're doing. And, you know, now, if you have a caring man, you see, that's the problem. A caring man will automatically give you more.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I would say that I would go
Well,
right to
you do
blaming
go.
myself
You do
and-
go there because you actually care about me.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, it's true. I know. Yeah, I've gotten the notes.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, there's so much involved in all of this stuff. I mean, if sex were that simple, we wouldn't be talking about it all the time, would we? You know, and I know that
It's funny because I think actually it is that simple.
it is simple,
If
but
you
it isn't simple.
Just cleared out all the extra shit.
It's no longer simple. We've made it very, very
Really
complicated.
a lot.
And it would be simple if people actually just got into relationships, were honest with each other, and loved and enjoyed each other. But it doesn't work that way, does it? This is why we have a great website that people read all the time, and people watch the show. And so for that, we're thankful, I guess. I don't know.
Got about 2 minutes.
So yeah, in summation, go have good sex.
Yeah. Yes. Do it like that.
That's it. Go have good sex. You know, if you have problems having an orgasm, go seek medical treatment. Well, first psychological treatment, and then medical treatment if you need
Here's
to.
one that we didn't really talk about, but we probably should. Communication.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that
Real
too.
briefly.
And say things like, "Hey, honey, I didn't come."
Yeah.
You know, because men are very simple, ladies.
Do it there. Move that thing. Really very simple.
that up that
Crank
way.
that up that way.
You know,
More left, less right.
and you know, one of the things that I'm going to leave you with is, if you're having problems with your partner, how often do you use sex toys? That's a big one too, and that we'll have to probably keep talking about it at a later date. Sex toys and pornography are really affecting our abilities to have sex,
Oh, yeah.
like normal sex. So we need to look at those things and start weaning them out of our. And of course, as I'm doing that, I'm probably like telling sponsors to go F themselves because, you know.
Oops.
But yeah, lubrication.
And let's see, we will not see you next week.
We will not see
so
you
we'll
next
see you
week.
the following week.
But if you want one of these,
Email
us at coupledom.com, info@coupledom.com, and we'll send you one.
Bye.
Got a bunch of them.